The door to that room closed behind me, and I stood completely still. I did not move. I did not speak. I just stood there in the middle of what was supposed to be the most beautiful night of my life, and I listened to the silence eat me alive. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, her back straight, her eyes on the wall. Not on me, on the wall. The soft light in that room made everything look romantic. The folded towels shaped like swans, the scattered flower petals, the champagne sitting untouched on the table. Someone had gone to a lot of effort to make that room feel like the beginning of forever. And she was staring at the wall. I said her name, softly, the way a man says the name of someone he has just promised his entire life to. She turned slowly, and she looked at me the way you look at something you are not sure you want to touch. "Wait," she said. "I need you to ask me properly first." I thought it was a joke. I actually smiled. I waited for her to laugh. She did not laugh. I stood in that hotel room and I asked, carefully, respectfully, the way a man asks someone he has just promised his life to, and she considered it the way someone considers a request from a stranger. Measured, distant, without warmth. When she finally agreed, nothing in her changed. She was there, but she was not there. The way a light can be on in a room where nobody is home. I could feel the distance between us, like a third person standing in that space, present, heavy, and completely silent. The room went quiet after that. The kind of quiet that does not feel like peace. It feels like something ending. I stood near the window for a long time. She was still. The champagne was still waiting on the table, untouched, and I looked at all that careful effort someone had put into making that room feel like the beginning of forever, and I did not know what to do with any of it. It felt like being handed something wrapped in gold paper and finding nothing inside. That was the night I should have asked myself the question I spent the next 2 years running from. But let me take you back to where this all began, because none of this will make sense without it. I was not looking for love when I found her. I was just scrolling, the way we all do late at night when the world feels a little too quiet. And then her profile appeared, and I stopped. She was striking. That is the only word for it. The kind of face that makes you forget what you were doing a second ago. But it was not just her face. It was everything around it. Every post, every caption, every word she had written. Her entire page was a declaration of faith. Every corner of it said, "I believe, I trust, I am rooted in something real." That combination, her beauty and her conviction, did something to me I was not prepared for. I reached out. She responded. And within weeks it felt like we had known each other for years. We talked every day, long conversations that stretched past midnight. We prayed together over voice calls. She sent me words of encouragement in the morning and checked on me before I slept. She was warm and soft and sure of herself in a way that made me feel steady just being near her. I told my closest friend after 4 months, "This is the one." He laughed and said I was moving too fast. I told him some things you just know. After a year of dating, we stood at the altar. She wore white and she was crying happy tears, and I remember thinking, I am the luckiest man in this room, maybe in the world. I could not have guessed then what was already waiting for us on the other side of that moment. The honeymoon did not break me right away. I told myself she was nervous. I told myself that some people take time to open up, even with people they love. I had married a woman of deep faith and deep reserve, and I respected that. I told myself, give her time, be patient, be the man she needs. We came home, we settled into our apartment, a place we had chosen together, decorated together, built our routines around together, and I waited. I prayed. I cooked her favorite meals. I left small notes on the bathroom mirror. I told her every day that she was beautiful, and that I loved her, and that I was not going anywhere. She received all of it quietly, politely, the way you receive a gift you did not ask for. 3 months passed, then 6. The closeness that a marriage is supposed to hold. That warmth that says you are safe with me. I chose you. We belong to each other. It simply was not there. She was not cruel about it. There were no fights. There was just distance, presented calmly every single day, until I began to wonder if I was losing my mind. I prayed more. I tried harder. I asked her gently, more than once, if she was okay, if there was something she needed, if I had done something wrong. She always said she was fine. She always said she was fine. She always said things would get better. Then one night, the one time in all those months that she was truly present with me, she fell pregnant, and something in me settled. A baby. A reason to move forward together. A thing we had made from what we were. I held on to that like a man grabbing a rope in deep water, and I pulled myself toward it with everything I had. I threw myself into that pregnancy completely. I was up before her every morning. I learned which foods turned her stomach and which ones she could keep down, and I built every meal around that list. Plain rice on the bad days. Ginger in everything. I kept a small notepad in my pocket for weeks, actual handwritten notes about what worked and what did not, what time she usually felt sick, what helped. I never showed her the notepad. It felt too raw to explain. I washed her clothes by hand on the days the machine felt too rough. I timed my errands around her nap schedule so the apartment was quiet when she needed it. At night, when her hips ached and she could not get comfortable, I would lie awake in the dark, not wanting to disturb her, but wanting to be ready the second she needed me. Some nights I barely slept. I told myself this was what love looked like in action. I told myself I was building something. Every meal I cooked and every piece of laundry I folded was a brick in a wall I believed we were constructing together. I did not realize I was the only one who thought we were building something. She gave birth, and her mother arrived 3 days later. 2 weeks, 3 at most, and then she would return to her own home, and we would find our new normal as a family of 3. That was the agreement. I remember nodding and saying, of course she should come. She is your mother. She is family now. The 2 weeks passed, then a month, then 6 weeks. Every time I raised the subject gently, the answer shifted. There was always a reason. The baby still needed her. The commute was too far. She was not sleeping well at home. And then one afternoon I heard the real reason, delivered in the kitchen while I was sitting in the next room. Her mother's voice, low and practiced. "Do you want to throw me onto the streets?" I sat very still in that chair and I listened. I heard my wife go quiet on the other side of the wall. And when I looked at her face later that evening, she had already made her decision. Her mother was staying. I told myself it was fine. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself that a good man does not make his wife choose between her husband and her mother. I kept telling myself things. The changes did not come all at once. That is the part that is hardest to explain to someone who has not lived it. It was slow, quiet, piece by piece, like someone removing furniture from a room while you are sleeping, so that one day you wake up and realize you're sitting on the floor and you cannot remember when you last saw the chair. Decisions started going through her mother first. What to cook, when to go out, how money was spent. I would come home to choices that had already been made, plans set, the shape of my own home quietly rearranged, and my wife would look at me the way someone looks when they have already cleared the change with a higher authority. I started noticing the small things, the way my wife's eyes moved to her mother before she answered even my simplest questions, the way certain conversations stopped the moment I walked into a room, the way my presence in my own home had started to feel like something that needed to be worked around. Then came the afternoon I walked past the kitchen and stopped. Her mother's voice, light and casual, like she was sharing a joke. "Why are you serving your husband first? This is the 21st century. Haven't you heard of the change?" I stood outside that door and felt something go very still inside me. Not anger, not yet. Something quieter than anger. The feeling you get when you understand that what you thought was an accident has been a direction all along. She was not giving her daughter advice about love or marriage. She was teaching her that putting me first was a mistake, that taking care of me was something to be ashamed of. And she was doing it in my own kitchen, in my own home, like I was not even worth the effort of waiting until I had left the room. I walked back to my room and sat down. I stared at the floor for a long time, and I thought about all the months of distance and silence, and I thought about the way my wife's eyes moved to her mother before she answered my questions, and I thought about how slowly and completely I had gone from husband to inconvenience in a home I paid for. After that, the disrespect stopped hiding. Groceries would run out. I would restock everything, the full list, nothing forgotten. Within days it would all be gone. Then I would see new things appear, items restocked, bags brought in. And when I reached for them, I was told those were not for me. There were evenings I opened every cupboard in that kitchen and found nothing that had been bought with me in mind. I would put something together from whatever was left, whatever no one had thought to set aside, and I would eat it standing at the counter. Not because there was no food in the house, because none of it was meant for me. My laundry sat outside one evening when a storm came in fast. I had forgotten it. I was working late and I forgot. I came home hoping someone had brought it in. No one had. It sat in the rain all night. I found it the next morning, soaked through and heavy, needing to be washed all over again. I carried it back inside and said nothing to anyone. I was disappearing, quietly, in plain sight, and everyone in that apartment seemed completely comfortable with it. Then she accused me of taking her money. She could not find $200 she said she had left in her drawer. She looked at me the way you look at someone you have already found guilty, not to ask, but to confirm. I told her calmly that I had not touched her money, that I had not been near her drawer, that I had no reason to take it. She held my gaze for a long moment. "If I don't find it," she said, her voice very quiet, "I will have no choice but to tell people what I think happened to it." She did not shout it. She said it the way someone says something they have already decided is true, certain, unhurried, final, and that the quietness of it, the complete lack of doubt, was what turned the floor cold under my feet. Something in me gave way. Not violently, I want to be clear about that. But 2 years of held words finally ran out, and I spoke. I said what I had been carrying for months. I told her that I had given everything I had to this marriage and this home, and that I deserved better than to be accused in a house I had built for us. My voice was not steady, but my words were honest. She let me finish. Every word. She did not flinch, did not look away, did not try to cut in. She just watched me with that same calm face, the face I had spent 2 years trying to reach past. And when I finally ran out of words and the room went quiet, she looked at me for one long moment. Then she straightened her shoulders, the way someone does when they have decided a conversation is over, and she walked past me, not around me, past me, close enough that I felt the air move. The bedroom door did not slam. That would have been something. That would have meant I had reached her. It closed the way it always closed. Soft, controlled, completely final. I stood in the middle of the living room with my hands at my sides. My chest was heaving. I could feel my own pulse in my ears. 2 years of held words had just left my body all at once, and the room felt strange from it, like the air pressure had changed, and nobody had noticed but me. Then I heard her mother in the kitchen, the soft click of the kettle, the quiet pull of a cupboard door, the small, unhurried sounds of a woman completely undisturbed by what had just happened 10 feet away from her. She moved around that kitchen like she had lived in it her whole life, like she had earned it, like I was the one who did not belong. I looked at the front door, then at the hallway, then at the floor, and I understood, standing there in the middle of my own home, with my voice still raw and the kettle starting to hiss, that I had been speaking into a room that had already decided it was not listening, maybe for a very long time. I sat in that apartment long after everyone had gone to sleep. I looked at the walls of a home I had worked hard to build, and I tried to find myself somewhere in them. Some trace of the man who had smiled when she walked down that aisle, the man who had kept a notepad in his pocket, just to make sure she ate well, the man who had lain awake at night just to be ready when she needed him. He was harder to find than I expected. I am not that same man now. 2 years of quiet rejection and slow erasure will do that to a person. Not all at once, but steadily, the way water wears down stone without ever making a sound. I have learned things about love I did not expect to learn. That it can be performed without being felt. That devotion can be worn like clothing and removed in private. That someone can share your space, your name, your everyday life, and still make you feel like you are standing completely alone in every room. I have also learned something about myself that is harder to say out loud. I stayed longer than I should have. I explained things away that had no good explanation. I told myself that patience was the same as wisdom, and it is not. Patience without limits is not a virtue. It is just a longer way of allowing yourself to be hurt. I kept waiting for the woman I had seen on that profile, the one who spoke about trust and faith and the goodness of people, to show up inside my marriage. She never did, and at some point I had to stop waiting for a version of my wife that may never have existed outside of a screen. I do not know yet what the next chapter looks like. Some days the weight of everything sits so heavy I cannot see past it. Other days there is something quieter underneath. Something that feels almost like the first thin light before a long sunrise. Not happiness yet, not even close, but the beginning of knowing who I am again. And that, I think, is where healing starts. Not with an answer, not with a resolution, just with the quiet, honest decision to stop disappearing. If this were your life, your home, your marriage, your hope, at what moment would you have finally drawn the line? I want to know, because I am still working that out for myself. Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.